Did you see what I showed?
Okay. You are the shittiest at cues. Like when I'm like, okay, go, Sam. You just started busting out laughing every fucking time. This is our intro, by the way.
Did you see?
You're listening to Apostates on the Fringe, the podcast where we talk about religious and political news, current events. We're your hosts. I'm Alistair.
I'm Dustin.
And then Sam.
Yeah, let's get started.
Alrighty. So I know y'all are probably drinking the same beer y'all had last time.
Yeah.
Y'all need to switch your shit up more often. I have with me from the Tailgate Brewery in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a peanut butter milk stout. And it's fucking glorious. I haven't had a peanut butter milk stout since I was in California and it had it was the Belching Beaver Brewing Company.
Belching Beaver, that's a nice name.
It is a nice name. That's what kind of turned me on because I had like no idea about it. But
turn you on.
Absolutely. Like when I saw that who the brewer was, of course I had to try it. But it's actually it's pretty good for.
The Left Hand Brewing Company got me with the Nitro. And I also have one of Dustin's peanut butter beers.
Yeah, I knew you'd want to try that. Next week, I am hardcore trying, and I'll announce it again, but they have a peanut butter and jelly. Not by the same brewing company, but I'm definitely trying that next time to see how that goes.
We need to get some of that peanut butter whiskey to drink one night.
Just get drunk off peanut butter all night.
The peanut butter whiskey is so good.
Oh, it was.
No,
I've had it, but I didn't get to try the one you had.
It's so smooth and tasty, and it's
Sponsorship ideas.
All right, guys. So Dr. Seuss got canceled this week.
The Mulberry Street.
Is that the one with the Chinese
Yeah.
people? That's the one I was aware of.
Well, it's just one guy, and he's eating like noodles. He's not.
There was something else where they were like carrying a rickshaw type looking.
There is, but that was we bought something about running a zoo. If I ran a zoo, and there's
okay. No, I do remember reading that as a child.
If I ran a zoo, it also had that like Russian guy that was like severely bloated, had a really tiny mouth. Like it was just
racially insensitive look around the world.
Yeah, basically culturally insensitive, like around the world. As
well, my opinion on this is I would also like to pretend that my grandfather wasn't racist. Like they're trying to erase what was like. I don't think that we should erase that media. I think that it should have like a disclaimer in front of it saying,
if the book's not being sold, why continue publishing them? If only one of the books...
Because I think everything needs to be in circulation.
It still will be. Just because it's not being published doesn't mean there aren't going to be plenty of... I mean,
sure.
I bet I can go to McKay's right now and find one of each of those.
I'm just saying, if they're still going to make the books, they just need a disclaimer saying, times have changed, this is what was wrong, this is why it's wrong.
That's what Disney did for.
Exactly,
that's what Disney did to preserve their old stuff. They slap a disclaimer.
Looney Tunes is a lot better at it.
No,
is it?
Song of the
is a lot
South.
better at it than Disney.
Disney's
revisionist. Disney's revisionist. Song of the South, they like, or Dumbo and some other things. Even Lady and the Tramp had something. The Disney's more of a cut. They are revisionist, and that's what I don't like.
Song of the South isn't even sold in
exactly.
Here now.
They yank or they revise it. But, like I said, Lady and the Tramp, they've tried to like edit out some parts. That's what I don't like. Like Warner Brothers has a warning at the beginning instead of completely removing it.
I could have sworn we watched something on Disney recently that included the cultural insensitivity, but it had the disclaimer at the front.
That's good. That's what it should be.
I think it depends on what it is.
It was
and
Fantasia
how
though, and
yeah.
we didn't,
but like Song of the South, I remember being a kid and it wasn't sold
shitty.
here. It's always been.
But A Ride was based off of it. That's why it's popular, or it remained popular.
Right? Was it even that popular? Because I was one of the
was.
few people that actually saw the movie, and
The
I
Ride
think
was
we
popular.
saw
And The
it.
Ride's the only thing that kept people talking about this shitty movie. But
Fucking Splash Mountain.
yeah, that's it. I think they're trying to rechange Splash Mountain. I mean, Song of the South is like, it's so ingrained in it that it's hard to enjoy it without that. You know, sometimes there's things that like A Christmas Story has the culturally insensitive part where they go to the diner, the Chinese food place.
Oh, right.
And
you're absolutely right.
I don't want to see a version of that movie with that taken out, but it doesn't ruin the movie. There's other movies where the cultural insensitivity is so ingrained into what the movie is that it becomes cringe. Like some old Peter Sellers movies where he put on Yellowface, I guess is what it's called.
We had a copy of Song of the South growing up.
That's going to be expensive. You better keep hold of that.
I don't think we still have it.
Once they revise it and see, that's the thing. If they put everything online and everything on Disney Plus, they can change and edit whatever they want.
It will, yeah.
Yeah,
I do have
that's why
a
hard
bunch
copies
of
are still important.
Old VHS of Disney movies, but I don't think Song of the South is in that one. But it's funny to me because my mom was able to tell us as kids that it won't be sold in America, and told us why, but continued showing it to us like it was nothing.
Did you see the video where they were trying to push Seuss on the house floor? Was it a house?
He had like a minute of that. He took a minute of his time before he yielded it just to talk about the Dr. Seuss thing, and he had this big ass poster. I think it was even the Cat in the Hat, which had nothing to do with any of the 6 books that were in controversy. That, by the way, it was the estate's own decision to do this. Like, it was on them. Now, of course, we still are in agreement that slap that disclaimer on there and just preserve that history, preserve that art. But
let's not pretend that his views were different.
Right. I mean, he definitely had a big
yeah, he was racist, but I think at the end he realized it was all racist. And
like I said, I think every single one of our grandparents were racist. So
right.
I saw some comics, like one-page comics that were apparently done by Dr. Seuss that were pretty progressive in regards to race. For the time, definitely. I mean, it fell even today. Someone.
That's what I think is hilarious about the Republicans trying to jump behind Dr. Seuss, because he has so many progressive messages that they can't really pretend to like Dr. Seuss because his stories are completely against their agenda, like the Lorax.
The Lorax, for sure.
They can't rally behind the Lorax because they don't have those that doesn't have conservative values at all. How the Grinch has no mention of Christianity, and it's an anti-capitalist message, so they can't get behind that either. Like, they can't. How are they even pretending that Dr. Seuss was theirs? That's what I find so hilarious.
I think it's just they would jump on another thing, gets canceled by the left, sort of thing.
But yeah, just like going into Mr. Potato Head, this was canceled by the creators and not people bitching about it.
Yeah.
Which kind of turns into one of these... so the right feeds off... I'm sure you know this, Al. That the right feeds off a lot of straw men and false flags.
Right.
Where they say, the left hates this. Like...
The
Isn't
war
that
on
ridiculous?
Christmas, the Starbucks cups.
Yeah, and Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss are one of these things that no one was really complaining about. It was the company themselves that were like, well, I'm sure Mr. Potato Head is pretty irrelevant, and this has made them relevant, so it's making them money. This is a marketing scheme.
It actually is, because they're surging now. I saw an article about Dr. Seuss's shit surging right now.
Right, because nobody, I hadn't thought about Mr. Potato Head in years.
Potato Head, by the way. It's not Mr. anymore.
They, them, Potato Head.
They, them, Potato Head.
That's what I want to see on the packaging.
Please.
If they really want to
they would lose their shit,
if they
wouldn't
really
they?
want to piss off the right-wingers.
Wouldn't the right-wingers just lose their shit if they saw that?
You remember Mr. Potato Head was originally just like gave you a potato. They had to like turn it into plastic.
That's right.
Like, damn.
I never had one that young. I did have a Mr. I never had a Mrs. I guess
I remember having the Mrs. I think when I was a kid.
Exactly, that's my point. That they clearly distinguish the two sexes, and now that line's blurred, and it's scaring them. That's what I keep trying to point out to everybody, where they're like, "Why is the right so upset over this? Why is the right so upset over this?" I'm like, well. Like you said, like what you were talking about last week, the right used to be the ones that were canceling people. And now the fact that it's switched is just showing that they're losing power and they're losing the culture wars. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they're panicking because
they're losing their shit.
Yeah, it's a clear showing. I mean, like, people are like, it's ridiculous they're losing their shit. I'm like, oh, no, this shows that they're losing. So, yeah, I would understand why they're losing their shit.
It really is. Like, my newsfeed is, I do have some, like, right-wingers on my page. They're also personal friends, and I tend to not, engage.
Do you, Sam?
At this point, after I was arrested this summer, fuck
I
no.
I don't know if they.
Mine all deleted me, or there's some I deleted, but I think most of them just deleted
There's some
me.
people that I won't be able to pass on the street without getting into a fight with now. So
I do have a few. I think literally two, and they were like really actually good friends of mine.
I always have a rule that I don't block, unfriend, or delete people. Generally, I make them do it to me.
And they haven't.
depends.
Yeah, that's
That
probably why.
doesn't
'Cause
always work. You know how many
seems to work
people?
for me.
There's one person on my friends list who every time he chimes in, I just fucking lay into him, and I keep waiting for him to delete himself. He won't do it. And
was that
so
the dude that you? It was like a 52 comment thing the other day. Was that
Yeah,
the guy?
that's
Okay.
him. He came back this week. I hadn't heard from him in a few.
Well, you
months,
doing it
but-
to their page is one thing. If they do it on your page and they get like throwing chum in the waters and all your liberal friends like just fucking eat them. So
That's what it is.
That
My
does happen.
friends chime in and like.
So a lot of stuff going on this week. Coming up is the Chauvin trial. Am I pronouncing that right, or did I just butcher his name?
Chauvin.
So on Monday, jury selection begins.
They're expecting that to be like a 3-week process.
And they're fortifying the city, are they not, during
Oh
this time?
yeah. They're protecting their. Correct me up the article I read because it said the remaining precincts.
The ones that weren't burned to shit down. Well, I mean, you have to imagine that. Do you think they're worried about the outcome of the jury then at this point?
I mean, not they're worried about the outcome because if he is not convicted, the city's probably going to burn again.
Oh, of course it is. But you think so? Does that bode? I think it has ill feelings if they're already fortifying. They think that there's a high chance that he won't be convicted because that's a lot of money they're going to be spending right now for a what if situation. So
8 minutes
did
and
the same
43
thing.
seconds. That man begged for his life. They should be worried.
Yeah. No, but I mean, if they're worried that he's not going to be convicted, and that's why they're spending all this money that's why they're spending all this money to fortify.
they care more about that than they
Well,
do actual justice.
In fairness, Louisville
Yeah.
with the Breonna Taylor, when they announced whether they were going to charge the officers, they did the same exact thing. They
Yep.
boarded
Oh,
up
did they?
their downtown. They prepared. They don't know what the outcome's going to be, but they prepared either way. So, and I'm sure Minneapolis is doing the same thing. I think he has more chances or a higher chance of being convicted than Kyle Rittenhouse does. I really think that 8 minutes and 43 seconds has gotten to people, and they're going to have a hard time finding jurors that
are impartial, right?
that's going to be a hard thing. Same with Kyle Rittenhouse because
Yeah.
of the publicity. That's why they're taking 3 weeks to find jurors because
Didn't they ask to have the I guess his court no one talking about his trial in another state or location? I thought
they did.
not that he doesn't have like national recognition.
I
Anyways.
think that's what the judge said, that changing the location is not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about this.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to find an impartial jury at that point. It's like, oh,
I mean, it was
are you people stupid? Do you
And
hide
it's-
under a rock? Do you have no idea what's going
It's not
on?
the first case like this,
That's
though.
happened plenty
and,
of times. It's a
and
problem with the
some people
system
just
in
don't
general.
pay that much attention to the. Some people just don't pay that much attention to the news and what's going on.
Yeah. Well, in other news, any minute now, by the way, guys, today is March 4th for all of these at home. We record on Thursdays. Any minute now, Trump is going to be inaugurated as the 19th.
It's happening
constitutional
right now. It's
Right now?
already happening.
Praise
liberal
Jesus.
media will not show you this. Okay,
go
so
for it.
we gotta wait. They say the
I'm ready for the
darkness.
storm.
The darkness comes before the light.
Okay.
So while we sleep tonight, it's getting dark outside
like
right
Santa
now.
Claus.
It's getting dark outside. So it's happening.
Leave
And
some
when we
McDonald's
wake
out
up
for
in the
when
morning-
Trump comes down your chimney.
When we wake up in the morning, Trump
good.
will be president. That's why Congress, they said it was because of, worried about some attack. They were worried that people would find out that Trump was stepping in.
So you think like Biden's being arrested like right now as we speak,
he
along with
absolutely
Pelosi?
is, yeah.
That's really going to hurt our chances in some of the legislation we're going to talk about with Pelosi and Chuck Schumer behind bars. But we'll see. Speaking of legislation, I think Al, you and Sam wanted to talk about Tennessee had recently passed. I don't know when because I didn't look it up, but apparently they passed among several other states, and I have a number of that, a sports ban on transgender.
Yeah, it's fun watching moderates on my friends list try to discuss the nuance of trans athlete bills.
So I got a solution for the trans sports stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just have fucking co-ed teams. Have 2 teams per school based on skill level.
Yeah, that's...
Co-ed. Everybody gets to fucking play. There's no issue on...
Yeah, I think this really just shows a bigger problem with the way that sports are divided, that there needs to be another set instead of male-female. Like
girls were playing football on the boys' football teams since I was in school 20 years ago.
There needs to be a different section, a different way to section out people. I think that's what this is really showing.
Here's the thing: people were okay with girls playing on football teams. Some people, like it wasn't that uncommon to see, and nobody was freaking out about the girls' locker rooms, boys' locker rooms, none of that. But now that a trans issue comes up, all of a sudden, but the locker rooms.
Well, and let me steel man, if you mind, let me steel man the other side, and I'm going to use air quotes here when I say biological. The argument is that trans girls are biological, again, air quote, males, and as such will have larger body mass, larger muscles, faster speed.
What are they going to do? The opposite of juicing and not take their estrogen so they can have testosterone?
Like, how many trans women have you known?
None, actually.
Okay,
I mean, there's one in college, but
and most of them have always been pretty feminine. They're not as muscular as men. They're not as athletic a lot of time as other men, like men who play sports. They probably were because they're more feminine. They're a lot of times they're more dainty. They probably didn't want to go play sports with the boys, and then they see the girls' team and they're like, "Oh, I may fit in there." Mm-hmm. But you typically don't have. In these situations, I wouldn't think you would have like a football player type body being like, I'm a trans girl and I want to play basketball now.
So and they're thinking that a man who's just like not doing so well in the boys division or men's division will just like, I'm a girl now and I'll just go dominate over there.
A South Park episode.
But I do want to mention what a lot of these states are doing is because of what happened in Connecticut between 2017 and 2019. There were 2 transgender sprinters and combined to win 15 championship races, which prompted a lawsuit. And now all these states are just preemptively filing these bills. And I do want to mention, this is from the Associated Press. Legislators in more than 20 states have introduced bills this year that would ban transgender girls from competing on girls' sports teams in public high schools. Yet, in almost every case, sponsors cannot cite a single instance in their own state or region where such participation has caused problems. The Associated Press reached out to 24 state lawmakers sponsoring such measures around the country, as well as the conservative groups supporting them, and found only a few times it's been an issue among the hundreds of thousands of American teenagers who play high school sports. So it's what you were saying. It's not a fucking problem.
It's no different than the bathroom bill. It's an excuse.
Right.
And the thing is, okay, so most high school trans kids likely are not going to be on hormone replacement yet, because there's just more red tape around that. They're likely just going to be on hormone blockers. So if you get a trans boy on hormone blockers, a trans girl on hormone blockers, those hormones help your muscles develop and things like that. So she would not be as built as a man.
That's what I'm saying. Like, are they afraid of the opposite of juicing?
Well, and then the other thing, though, is it leaves trans boys with nowhere to play. Because they can't play with the boys because it's not their assigned gender. And then when they go play with the girls, it's going to be like, if they've made it to the point of being on testosterone, their parents let them get on testosterone, well, you can't play with the girls. You're on testosterone. It's a muscle enhancer. It's a muscle enhancing drug, so you can't play with the girls. So, in other words, like, trans boys won't get to play. And then, the trans girls, if they've been on hormone blocker, they're not going to be equipped to play with the boys. So what it does is it leaves trans kids with nowhere to play.
I actually have an example of exactly what you're talking about. So, again, this is Associated Press. Texas was among those of the states. I'm going to list the states and not the number of states that have different policies.
About Texas a lot.
For trans. Well,
they fuck up
Texas,
often.
fucking Texas. So they limited transgender athletes to teams conforming with the gender on their birth certificate. The policy came under criticism in 2017 and 2018 when trans male Mac Beggs won state titles in girls wrestling competitions after he was told he could not compete as a boy.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting.
Exactly what you were talking about, and when you'd mentioned that a few days ago, and then when I saw this article that this came fresh today for this topic, which I was so happy it popped up from the AP for this because it's such a good, a lot of information for this. Exactly what you were talking about. They couldn't compete where he wanted to compete. He had to compete with the girls and won a state title. So I wanted to talk about a little bit, just so everyone knows. Some states have school athletic organizations already have rules. 19 states allow full inclusion of trans athletes. 16 have no clear-cut strategy. 7 emulate the NCAA's rule by requiring hormone therapy. And I think there are 7 right now that
Where's Tennessee in that?
8. Well, Tennessee has just... there's actually 20 states right now that are having bills introduced right now, and Tennessee has introduced theirs. And they were among listed here on the article for not having an answer.
So that's why they're doing now.
So House Speaker Cameron Sexton conceded that there may not
Karen,
actually
of course
be...
It's a Karen.
Yeah, Cameron.
Oh, Cameron.
Cameron
That's the
Sexton.
male Cameron.
Conceded that there may not actually be transgender students now participating in middle and high school sports. He said the bill was necessary so the state could be proactive, and it's just fear-mongering on the right, and just...
It is fear-mongering,
They're trying to find the path of least resistance to attack trans
I
people.
think the Tennessee Holler, one of their reporters, chased down one of the Tennessee legislators, being like, just name one instance. Where has this been an issue? Just tell us, just one time this has been an issue.
It's the same as the bathroom bill. Name an issue where this has happened. And people I'm going to call up this bitch again, but fucking Joanne Rowling. I'm going to start calling her Joanne. But
it's everyone's like, how would you feel if your kid was in the bathroom? I honestly do not give a single shit about my teenage child in the bathroom with a trans student. No matter which way the gender goes, I don't give a shit. I don't. Because half the time, kids just go in the bathroom to hang out anyway. They're not pulling their pants down in front of people. Right. They're going into stalls.
I'm more afraid of a priest or something like that walking into a bathroom than I am a trans person.
I had a friend say it. You want to protect the high school girls playing sports? Stop getting pedophile coaches in there that are
Well, the thing with the trans people in the bathroom, it goes into the they see it more as a predatory male is trying to take advantage of people and trying to the laws that have been passing in Europe have specifically said a predatory male disguising themselves to make people or make women lower their defenses. And a lot of people have been saying that comes from media of the crazed transsexual or crazed cross-dresser.
More women and children have been assaulted in bathrooms by Republican lawmakers than they have been transgender people.
I saw that stat. That's A, disturbing, but B, it's just very clear that this is not a problem. They're making it a problem and just causing more further discord. Do you guys want to talk about the religious aspect of trans rights?
Oh, it's all because of God.
Like I said, exactly. They hate them, and they're trying to find the path of least resistance, because if they can pass these bills, then maybe the next bill that will affect them a little worse will pass more easily. If you can convince people that they were a danger in bathrooms. Then it'll be easier to convince you that they shouldn't be around playing sports. Then it'll be easier to label them a menace.
Someone made a comment on a public post that said, God makes no mistakes. And my only response was, well, you're here, so they surely clearly does.
Didn't he revise the Bible by having a whole section apart later that came in and was like, all that stuff in the First Testament I'm changing around?
Well, there's that.
It wasn't a mistake, though.
It wasn't like the whole situation with Noah's Ark.
Yeah, wasn't that a whole thing? It was correcting a mistake.
Like,
every time someone posts, God doesn't make mistakes.
Plan,
Every time someone posts, God doesn't make mistakes, I'm like, hashtag Noah's Ark. Like, that was literally him correcting a mistake that he made and didn't foresee. You would think an omnipotent, omniscient God would have foresaw all of this and wouldn't have to dwell in the first place.
The Epicurus said, is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he's malevolent. If he's both able and willing, then whence cometh the evil? If he's neither able nor willing, then why call him God? Well, when I share that to people, they're like, free will. Well, God, if he's all-knowing, then he would have done something to prevent people from having the ability to murder each other, to abuse children, clearly he does make mistakes because we have cancer, we have
COVID, we have COVID.
Right.
That's all testing people, okay?
You're right.
Yeah.
But so here's my go-to thing, and I don't know where it came from. It may have just been something I heard on the Atheist Experience or something like that. But one of my go-tos, especially if they're talking about morality, or even just, about God in general, about making decisions, making mistakes, I'm saying, imagine you're walking down the street, and in an alley, you see someone about to rape a small child, and you had the ability to stop that from happening. Would you do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they said yes. And I'm like, congratulations, you are better than God.
Yeah.
You are better than your God.
Yeah, but they would try to tell you that, no, you wouldn't do it because you have a plan that small child's trauma is going to make them grow
Fuck
up
you.
and better people's lives.
You know
and
what?
it's all part of your plan.
Fuck, I remember Mormons coming to my house, and I had been I live in an apartment complex, so I had been trying to get them to leave my property for
Send
a
them
while.
to me.
Well, one day, it was about the third time I saw them out there, I was like, leave. We don't want you knocking on our doors. And I ended up going and sitting outside, and they decided to come talk to me. We talked. I was, kind of bored. I'm like, fine, you guys want to talk to me? We talked for about, 45 minutes, and then they pulled one of those, there's a reason for everything. And I'm like, fuck you.
Right.
Fuck you. You're telling me that there's a reason for children to be abused to the point that they grow up and become drug addicts to deal with their trauma? To the point where, half the time they end up killing themselves or being killed because of that trauma? There's a reason for that?
There's reasons that millions, literally millions, I think the number is 9 million, children under the age of 5 die per year, mainly due to hunger, illnesses, disease, and that's okay. They're okay with that. That's God's great plan.
When
they need more angels.
After I went off on that, they just kind of sat there quietly for a few seconds. They're like, one of them's like, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree. The other guy was just like, what the fuck? Because I was just this is a child who's been sexually abused. They don't oftentimes, some of them become inspirational. They overcome and they help a lot of people, but there's also a good portion of people who have been sexually abused who don't fucking live to be our age.
Yeah,
they
they
either
commit suicide.
overdie,
They're gonna blame that on the
overdose,
devil.
they commit suicide, or they're murdered. Mm-hmm. So you know what? Fuck you. When you want to say God has a reason,
they have an answer to everything. You can't
plan.
actually talk to these people. They have an answer to everything.
Well,
they have one of those dead end answers. The devil did it. It's God's plan.
Let's air quote answers because they're all circular logic that really is a non-answer.
They have an answer that makes them stop questioning it or stop thinking. That you're not going to get past. That's the wall that you hit. With a religious person or a conservative, you get to a wall that you hit that you're not going to get past. And with most religious people, that wall is faith.
Oh, yeah. So I kind of want to circle back to our previous topic, the transgender, before we move on to the legislation that was just passed, the Equality Act. And this is kind of part of that. The Equality Act was just passed by the House. They actually did have 3 Republicans join that bill.
Is that for real or was one accidental?
No, the one accidental was for...
How does this work? I can't hit the buttons right.
The one accidental was for the other bill, the George Floyd
How did
police.
Marjorie vote?
Oh, yeah. Judging by the poster on the side of her wall where we trust... Did you see that video, by the way? A lady that came out, as she played it was a poster that said, there's only 2 genders,
Right.
men and women,
I
and
think
said
we
trust
talked
the
about
science.
that last week.
Right, but then a scientist came out and said, yeah, except the science doesn't tell us that because of all the intricacies of how gender works in the chromosomes, and they're like, that's science isn't clear on that.
Well, there's not just 2 genders. Science actually knows it's not debatable that there are more than 2 genders. It's not, what is it, XXXY?
Yes.
It's not just that. But sometimes there's XXY or XYY. There are like many different combinations of chromosomes there. It's not just XXXY. There are not just 2 genders. Nowhere in science does it say there are just 2 genders.
So let me read.
It sucks when you base your entire worldview around gender roles. Like, that's really it. They're trying to defend their worldview, which has very simplistic boxes that they need to put people into.
So I'm going to tie religion into this from this is Right Wing Watch. Right Wing Pastor Andrew Womack. He hosts a weekly Bible study. You're going to hate him even more when I read this quote. So he hosts a Bible study program on YouTube because who the fuck watches that? But apparently he does. So, and I'm going to quote him here. It's not just people with a different opinion. It's not just some people have a different take on things. It is literally doctrines of the devil. They are taking children as young as 4 and 5 years old and telling them that you were born in the wrong body. You're actually a woman in a man's body or a man in a woman's body. And they are surgically altering them and giving them hormone blockers and stuff.
They're not surgically altering any minors.
No
minor is getting any gender
stupid.
It's not happening.
It's so
that
ridiculous.
reminds me of the shit Joanne said. I'm going to bring up this bitch again.
Okay.
But she had said in something that she wrote that she thinks, she says that she was more like butch, and that some of the more butch women that hadn't come, Joanne Rawlings.
Oh, okay.
I'm calling her Joanne from now on.
Okay.
Because she refuses to because she's a feminist, but she refuses to use a feminine name.
Noted.
And uses a male pen name. Yeah. Anyways, so Joanne said that she was afraid that she might have been transed.
Wait, transed?
Yeah.
That's a verb now?
Yeah, she might have been transed when she was younger if this rhetoric was out. She might have caught on to those ideas and it would have changed her whole life.
So, I didn't even know the word trans growing up. But I still, I mean, my mom used to throw a fucking fit because I wouldn't wear dresses and skirts. Didn't like any of the stuff that was, this is for girls. I did go through a makeup, but it was an art thing. Because my makeup was not like everybody else's in schools. That was an artistic expression at that age.
Just go to school looking like David Bowie?
No, not that bad. I made my own makeup and stuff. But I also, I wasn't able to get tattoos back then and stuff like that. And I like to decorate my body.
Naturally.
So, but I knew I never felt like a girl. Ever. But, and I didn't know that the term was not around. People weren't talking about transgender issues. But at the same time, where the fuck do I fit in? I'm not fully a guy. I'm not fully a girl. There was no rhetoric growing up that made me feel one way or another. And the kids growing up today, none of this rhetoric is going to make them feel one way or another. You feel the way you do because either, okay, this is where I fit in or this isn't. For those listening, I'm more NB. I don't fit into either fully. I'm androgynous.
But kids today can express it more, from what I understand.
They can.
It's a lot easier now, I would think.
a lot of me and my friends, like, if our kids even question anything, we're like, all right, whatever. If you want a new name, we're going to call you that name. My kid's experimenting with names right now. I thought, because I gave my kid their name, that it would kind of hurt if they didn't choose that name. They've changed names twice now, and I don't give a fucking shit. I'll call you whatever you want to know. Like, that was a gift I gave you. If you don't like any other gift I give you, I'll take it back. I'll take the name back, too, It's not that big of a deal.
And not to get too personal, because I didn't really know you when you grew up, was not having, I guess I don't really feel this way or feel that way, not really knowing how, like, where how you identified at the time, because you didn't have that. Those labels weren't around, I guess, at the time you were growing up as a young child. How did that affect you?
Everybody around me recognized. I was unfortunate enough to have a name that rhymed with boy. So that I got called a boy regularly because of my name, and they made up little rhymes with it. So it wasn't. It like, nobody should have been surprised.
In Kansas, no less?
Kansas, every place I lived. From as young as probably 7 or 8, I started hearing it. I had an older brother. I looked up to him. I always wanted to dress like him. I wasn't interested in Girl Scouts, but I became an honorary Boy Scout and went to a lot of, for as long as they would let me. When my brother got to a certain age, I wasn't able to go along with a lot of the Boy Scout stuff. But the younger years, when he was in Cub Scouts and stuff, I was able to, my dad was a scout leader, so I just went and did all the stuff with the boys, and I was happy doing that. And then my mom, when they got divorced, she would try to push me into all this girl stuff. And, like, I remember being 16 and her, like, forcing me to wear short shorts. And it's like, you have this body. That's not the body I want to put out, though. Like, it may be the body you wish you had, but it's not the body I wish I had. Yeah.
Okay. So I actually want to finish this quote because this is where he gets into the so after apparently we're forcing 4 and 5-year-olds to be surgically altered and giving them hormone blockers, which is not a thing.
5.
He continues, I'm telling you, this is not just a different opinion, somebody that has a little different way of looking at things. It is a doctrine of demons. It is demonic, and the people who are doing it are being influenced and controlled by the devil.
So I think
it's easy to
part of
rip
this,
apart straw men. That's what they're doing with all these bills, really.
Yeah, but I mean, from what I know of the devil, like, that'd be completely opposite of, like, what he'd do. I don't know. He's all for especially with the I guess I'm thinking about the Satanic Temple and what they believe with body rights and things like that.
Well, like I was saying about the representation of trans and people in media is demonized, like, not even just that, but like queer villains in media. Like, queerness has been coded as villainous in media, and I can think of some representations of Satan being more queer or more open to it. And like one of the ones that popped in my head was from Powerpuff Girls. But like, queer people have like attached onto these things, and I'm kind of on a split mind about that, really. But it's
so they with talking about that quote with the surgical performing surgical alterations on kids.
Yeah.
That became a big thing in that Texas suit over, I think the name was Luna Younger. It was a custody battle over a 7-year-old child. That the child said they were transgender. The mother who was a doctor. She decided to, affirm the child's identity. And I actually first came upon this in the right wing, watching the fucking Nazi groups, actually. And that's what they were saying is like, they're wanting to perform genital surgeries on this kid. All the mother was doing is using the correct pronouns and name that the child wanted. And the media blew it up as like this 7-year-old kid is getting gender reaffirming or gender.
They're being
modifications.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's the word. I don't know right now, but surgically becoming a girl. And that's not at all. I don't even think the kid was on hormone blockers.
That's their
yet.
idea.
They were just using their
I think
preferred
I think it's almost funny that they put forward this, like, this person's going to be transed against their will, when really they're already being, like, forced against their will into being the gender they don't want to be.
Right,
So they see that as a nightmare. Like, oh my God, being the gender I don't want to be would be a nightmare, but it doesn't connect with them. That's what's happening to these people.
Right. And then, there's a process when a child is trans. You don't go directly to surgery. The first things it's just reaffirm their identity. Use the correct pronouns and the name they want. When they hit puberty age, you don't start them on estrogen or testosterone at that time. You just do hormone blockers. The medicine, our medical field is set up to give these kids and families time to figure out who they are. So it's a very slow process. Okay, yeah, you're addressing them with their name and pronoun. Then we'll start the hormone blockers. When they get to 14, 15, then it may be, all right, well, we'll start introducing testosterone or estrogen here. But that's usually like until after they're in high school. And if a kid has made it from 6, 7, 8 saying I'm a girl when they were not born a girl, and then or biologically a girl, and then by high school age they still want to be a girl, let the girl have fucking estrogen. Like, if that's, like, it's such a slow progression that there's no reason to be like, oh, they were forced into it. No, this kid has plenty of time to say, I was experimenting. I've decided this is who I am.
Mm-hmm. So this week, the House again passed the Equality Act. I say again because they passed it in 2019, but at the time it was a Republican-controlled Senate. Right now it's a split 50-50. It would need to garner 60 votes to pass, and so it's going to be an uphill battle. Again, only 3 of the House Republicans voted to join, so that's 206 that voted no on the measure. So I'm not really hopeful again this year with such a slim margin. But it's a very good bill. It would prevent discrimination in a lot of areas for not only, again, the LGBTQ, but also gender identity. And the bill specifically says it trumps the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. It specifically trumps that. And I want to get some stats here that I didn't know until I read this article that was really depressing. In 27 states, currently as it stands, in 27 states, a person can be denied housing because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And that's fucking disgusting. They can be denied access to education in 31 states and the right to serve on a jury in 41. So the whole purpose of this bill was to...
Oh, shit. If I want to get out of jury duty, all I have to say is I'm trans?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I don't know. If they could prevent you from being there because
you can just
of that.
Go in there and yell, hey,
but not
Satan,
that,
you'll be fine.
Not that they would automatically. Now, of course, the right and the religious are up in arms because it does trump RFRA, and that applies to businesses. Bakeries can no longer do the shit they pulled, the florists. And there was one church bitching that they have a public section that they house public events, that they would have to house those kind of events, LGBTQ events.
I'm on a different side with it when it comes to bakeries and them baking that stuff.
Well, go on.
As an artist, I don't want to be forced to do religious artwork.
Okay.
I think because I think of that bakery as it's an art. Being able to create these cakes, these masterpieces, it's an art form. So you're going to an artist at that point and saying, you have to do this for me. And maybe there's like sectors where in this one you have to do what the public wants, and there's others where not. But if I'm like, if I'm creating something and somebody comes to me and says, well, I want Jesus on a cross and I want the words Jesus is white around it. I want to have the ability to say no. No, I don't want to be forced to do that.
So I think the argument I would make against that is, let's say you have a work of art you've already made, and a Christian wants to buy it.
That's a different thing, and that was the situation with the cake bakers. It wasn't a specialty cake. You were correct.
So that was my argument. Was like they just denied service based on what was going to be used for. So I get your argument, but I kind of see the other side because.
No, that's a completely different thing. If it's something I have already made, if you want my penis pal and you are a preacher, I will happily sell you one of my penis pals. However, you want a rosary, you're a priest and you want a rosary, and what else do Catholics wear? Maybe I don't know. You want if you want a Catholic penis pal, I will happily make you one.
I think you should make one in general.
You should have one sitting around the house right now.
You need to have a little collar and everything.
I plan to make a penis pal pope. But when I was really making the penis pals, that was when the child abuse things. And the penis pals are like miniature figurines. And I thought that would be a bad look to have a pope and small, I
think it's a statement in itself.
So I opted out of that, but so I mean, it is a different story when it's something pre-made.
I understand that, though. I've had to make that decision plenty of times in my career of videography that I refuse to work on. Like a lot of the movies and shit around here that are made are overtly religious things. Let
me posit this question to you then, Al. What if they said, "Hey, can you make us a cake with no"?
I wouldn't care. Yeah.
So but like nothing on there, like nothing like hey, happy gay wedding, just a normal cake, but they know that's going to a gay couple. What would you think about that then?
Okay, so in this thing is, I create a penis pal, and they want to take it to church that weekend. Mm-hmm. Fucking do it, please. Please, will you film it? I want to see everybody's reaction to it. So, even in that situation, if it's somebody I disagree with, I don't know. Okay, so I can agree with your point. I'm thinking now, if I created a piece of work and somebody wanted to take it to a fucking Nazi gathering, I would not be okay with that.
Well, hopefully there's a difference between the Catholic Church and Nazis. There hasn't been
very little
at certain parts in the past.
Very little, but there are some.
The most religious organization I worked for is I shot football for a Catholic organization for a bit. And it's like they didn't care about my. I even brought it up. I'm like, I'm an atheist. They're like, we don't care. You're shooting football. And I'm like, okay, football's non-religious. I don't care. So, as long as it's not in the work, then I wouldn't care.
Yeah, it really.
If they wanted me to shoot a propaganda piece, I would have a problem.
So that's the point I want to talk to you to counter against with you, Al, is that if it's not a specific work of art, that's make a very gay cake for us, just make a standard wedding cake. I think that they should, be able to make that for those couples. I do see your point where they should be forced to create art that they do not agree with.
Right, I think.
But creating a cake that they already make to other couples and just refusing to tell them because they're gay,
I think there was
is a distinction that I'm making.
A few years ago, many years ago, the kid was pretty young when this happened. There was a couple that threw a fit because a local bakery wouldn't put "Happy Birthday Adolf Hitler" on their son's birthday cake because they named their son Adolf Hitler.
Oh,
their daughter was named.
That's nuanced.
Their daughter was named Aryan Nation.
Oh,
but they took it to the media. They threw this big old fit about it. Walmart decided to make them the cake.
Of course.
But this all led to them losing custody of their kids. And when they went to court to get custody of their kids back, they went in full Nazi regalia, like the Nazi uniform, a swastika on the armband. They did not get custody of their kids back.
Guess they were hoping the local court system was a little more racist.
It's funny because nobody probably would have... I think their kids were homeschooled. So nobody would have paid them any bit of attention except they wanted to throw a fit because the local bakery wouldn't put Happy Birthday Adolf Hitler on a cake.
I hope their kids are like radical leftists now.
The guy ended up having like fucking 7 more kids, I think.
Obviously.
I think they've all been taken, but they were all given white nationalist names.
Hitler, Mussolini, like what like fucking dictator names.
So the according to the bill, this Equality Act that would create this equality for those businesses to provide those services. Texas, again, Representative Randy Weber called the bill anti-life, anti-family, and anti-faith.
Anti-life?
Fuck him.
I said, quoting him, don't question me. I'm not going to defend him.
Speaking of life, my life is better now that I'm not trying to fit into a box that I don't belong. If you want people to have a quality of life...
No, they want you to have a godly life. Your life is now an affront to God. And
you can't say...
agree with your life at all.
You can't say this is for life and then deny people a
God
life that
life.
will be fulfilling for them. It doesn't work that way.
Do you think Christians care about how fulfilling someone's life is? That has never been their
Actually,
system.
and they don't care about the future of life either, because the most far-right Christians don't believe that, in climate change is real, endangering their future generations because they think God's going to be in control.
They don't give a shit about future generations.
They really don't.
Because, why are you guys fighting the culture war? Let these people go to hell. Why? Yeah, exactly. Why are they... That's a good point, Dustin. Why the hell are they fighting the culture war if the apocalypse is going to happen in a few weeks anyways and they're all going to go to hell?
They can't fight it.
They pick and choose. They cherry pick on what issues they care about. It's the same reason they fucking put on seatbelts and carry guns. God doesn't protect them as they say He does. This is the same. They cherry pick the values on what they choose to believe in at the time that better suits them. God is in their own image of what they think
told to follow at the time.
It's why
their masters.
Bible has so many contradicting passages in it. It's because people can pick and choose which one they want to adhere to. It's a
choose your own adventure book, don't you know?
It basically
turn to page 36 and ignore all the other parts.
It's so up to interpretation. That always drove me insane. The interpretation. You're not interpreting that right.
You're taking it out of context.
I'm reading the fucking book. I'm reading the passages above and below, and this is what it's saying. That's the whole reason I started to read the Bible.
But is the interpretation part also why it survived this long? Because if it wasn't up for that, it would have died a long time ago.
Well, not only that, but they had armies to force it upon other people.
But they don't have armies Well, they do have armies now, but...
Have you been down the church alley on Kingston Pike?
I have not.
Not in a bit.
So there's a bunch of
Where exactly are you talking about, by the way?
Kingston Pike.
It's a very long road. What are you talking about?
No, there's a section in between Beard and Beer Market.
Okay. No, that's where I live.
And UT. That is like churches.
Oh, yeah. But there's like Jewish churches down there, too.
I know, but if you go down there right now, there's a bunch of or at least a few weeks ago, there are a bunch of banners outside the churches that said something like "Love your neighbor." Okay. I actually thought it was really cool. Like when I first saw a couple going down there, I was like, "What is this?" So this could go.
The UU's down
this
there
could
too.
go good or bad. That's where I was heading with this. I was like, "This. I don't know where this is heading." But I'll see if the UU has one. If the UU has one, then I'll think this is an accepting, love your neighbor type thing. And I did. When I got to the UU church, they had one. I'm like, okay, this seems like an inclusive, love your neighbor. It doesn't matter, who they are, how they want to live their life. We need to love our neighbors. But there are many churches in Knoxville that have these banners out front. And I think that's pretty cool. But I paid attention to the churches that did not participate.
That row you're talking about is also a very rich part of town.
It is, yeah. But yeah, I've always called it Church Row because it's like back to back churches.
Yeah, like you said, but they're different beliefs. There's the Jewish
right.
things
I
down
think
there.
the Jewish church had one down there.
The
Christian
Greek
Scientology.
Christian Science, Greek Orthodox, the unions down there. But it's also in a very rich part of town too.
But when you have all these church pretty much saying we're going to be inclusive. You start
neighbors.
But you start noticing the churches that do not do that, and it's like, why were you against this?
Yeah, I'll have to see which one's down that row. I go down there about every day.
I wanted to ask, do you think it's due to the proximity to the college and the?
Oh, I'm sure.
And the students because they want to appeal to those, and
I think it's the proximity to them being in the richest part of town and all next to each other. It's a community down there, and it's pretty. Capital L liberal, moderate. Moderate.
Yeah,
they're Democrats. That rich part of town is usually pretty right.
That's where you see the Gloria
left.
Johnson signs, and when I was
the
delivering around there
liberals.
this summer, I actually saw a lot of David Hayes for city council. So yeah, that is the liberal. That's Farragut's going to be more of the.
Hard R.
Yeah, hard R ones. They have way too much money for their own good.
These people also have too much money for their own good. But they're more open to
I think
equality and stuff.
They're closer to our level that they have sympathy.
I shop at their supermarkets because everyone wears a fucking mask.
Oh, right. It's close enough to downtown that people wear masks. Because I've noticed, it's definitely a radius here. The closer to downtown. Downtown is hit or miss. Mm-hmm. But as you go out, the closer to downtown you are, the more mask you see, and the further you go from downtown, the
depends
less
on
mask
where
you
too.
see.
No, absolutely true.
It depends on the location. If you're going to a Walmart, you're not going to see masks. If
well,
you go
I will
to
say,
a grocery store,
Walmart's decent.
I have in my profession, I have 7 Walmart locations that my business is inside, and Al's not wrong, and nor are you.
Okay.
So it's the same thing. More Knoxville, I have a higher percentage of mask wearers inside the Walmart. Clinton, not so much.
Clinton's further out.
Athens is even further out, and I swear to fuck, 30% at best are wearing masks in there, and
you also see the half-ass masks,
you see that, but
under the nose.
But they're happily non-wearing masks in the
they can get away with that.
Clinton is not the worst, because I go into Clinton, the McCamey Walmart, Western and McCamey.
Yeah.
That one has the best mask
this shit made me
that
stop shopping at Kroger.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Just in general.
And then, so I would say McCamey is the closest to downtown. And it's just like a market. It just does groceries mostly. And then Walbrook would be the next closest. And then the one out east...
Kinsaway.
Was that it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Clinton would be a little bit further.
Yeah.
And I bet the Kinsey Way one, it has a little bit better coverage than the Clinton Highway.
Yeah, it does. But you both are not wrong in terms of where the location is because the further out you get, the more right those people are. Mm-hmm. And they're like, but my freedoms. So, hey guys, guess what time it is? ACAB of the week.
Oh, I thought we already did ACAB of the week.
ACAB of the week time.
Yeah, this is ACAB of the week.
Oh,
you shared a video.
Oh, yeah,
a fucking disturbing video. So I don't know if you saw the video, Sam. But
I didn't even watch the video. I just sent it.
I don't want to watch that.
Okay, so a video was sent, and it was put on WVLT, our local news station, and it wasn't in Knoxville. I don't even care to pull the article to find out where it was.
I'll pull it up.
While I was doing that, I will describe the video. A police officer is outside his vehicle. His K9 jumps out of the vehicle on its own without being directed to do so, and he immediately yells at the dog, and the dog lays down. He goes up, hooks the leash to the dog, hoists the leash over his shoulder to put the dog's neck and shoulder over his shoulder, which is started cutting off his air and blood, and carrying this big ass dog over his shoulder like that, and then just chucks him and throws him into the car, and is, I think also seen hitting him. And his partner, oddly enough, wasn't like, "Yo, what the fuck are
Probably
you
not
doing?"
the first time you've seen that.
You know what his fucking partner said? Yeah, don't worry, there's no witnesses.
He said, "We're good, no witnesses."
Right, we're good, no witnesses.
This was in North Carolina.
That's a funny thing to say when you're on film. But yeah, I think even cops would say that's pretty fucked up because as the law states, assaulting a police dog is just as bad as assaulting an officer, which is bullshit.
Well, my first thought was...
But they usually do see their dogs as an officer, so I think even cops would say this guy was fucked.
Yeah, well...
They shoot dogs. They're definitely...
Well, that's other people's dogs. You know, they shoot people. That's not their people.
I have a story for that later when we talk about the George Floyd Police Justice Act.
The officer's name has not been released.
Oh,
Go
of course
ahead,
not.
Sorry.
But one of my first thoughts, and someone else said it in the comments, because of course I go through the comments, but they had the same kind of thought, was imagine this cop had a detainee, like he had someone who just moved the wrong way, and he flipped out that hard on a dog. Like, what's he going to do to that individual? Like, this person needs to be fired immediately. And of course, you said, hey, he assaulted a police officer.
Yeah, he assaulted a police officer.
Yeah.
So Roy Taylor, a veteran canine handler, said, "I think this was an example of something you should not do." You fucking think? Like,
yes.
Jesus.
So this is cop-on-cop violence, according to the law, right?
Yeah. According to the law, it is. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and segue from our ACAB of the week to our next bit of legislation. This the House on Wednesday passed a police reform bill called the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. This is House Resolution 1280. It passed 220 to 212, although... This is what we were talking about earlier. A Republican Representative Lance Gooden of Texas, again, Texas, Jesus fuck, said he'd voted yes by mistake and changed the official record to reflect his opposition. Now, the bill would do several things. So it would ban neck restraints and no-knock warrants in drug cases at the federal level. It would also reform qualified immunity, which is a doctrine that makes it difficult to sue officers. Qualified immunity has led to several problems and actually going after the individual police officers that are engaged in police brutality. And that's why these states, counties, and the states, counties, and cities are paying hundreds of millions of dollars to settle these lawsuits, while the individual officers
Right
face
out
little
of the
to no
state's pocket. You figure
little
more people
to
would be
no
pissed.
right.
This is
but no
something the
repercussions.
left has been arguing for years, is to get rid of that qualified immunity. The No Rock
shit.
Raids would be following suit with Kentucky's, I think they have a Breonna Taylor law, which bans No Knock Raids now.
Yeah, that's pretty light, though. Like, considering the difference between no knock and just raids.
Well, yeah, because you can knock and just barge right in.
Yeah, it's one of those shut them up bills. You know, oh, let's act like we did something that actually.
The biggest thing is that they're supposed to announce themselves now, I believe. And
I'm the
that's
cops.
big thing.
Bam. Like, okay, thanks. Let me get some pants on. Like,
Yeah.
what's the difference? Fuck you.
So we shit on Texas a lot because, of course, we
Well,
do.
you know, Texas is just letting all of their citizens die now.
Well, no-
I think this is the time for revolution. If you're in Texas right now, your state is trying to kill you.
Right.
Organize.
So, right. So also in the news recently,
are.
in the news recently, also again along with Mississippi, Texas also lifted their mask mandate. But I want to give praise to Colorado. Colorado, we talked about in our second episode regarding how they had the program to have non-officers respond to mental health crisis issues. They have already enacted laws to remove this qualified immunity. And I saw this on
There
an
we
article.
go.
I'm going to talk about qualified immunity. So in 1967, this is what the Supreme Court kind of paved the way for that. Over the years, the courts expanded that doctrine, the doctrine that says that basically government officials can't be sued if they were acting in good faith and didn't know what they were doing was illegal. But over the years, they expanded that doctrine, so even police officers who knowingly violate someone's rights are protected, unless a court has ruled that their behavior was unconstitutional in a previous case involving nearly identical circumstances. And I want to put this out because last year, for example, this is on NBC. This article was actually in conjunction with a collaboration with the Marshall Project. They're a nonprofit news organization. And they said that last year, for example, a federal appeals court found that a police officer who shot a 10-year-old by mistake while aiming for the family's dog was protected from liability under qualified immunity.
That's
Here's
ridiculous.
the thing, though. The whole thing with
Jesus Christ.
unless if an officer acted and did not know his actions were against the law. This is a goddamn police officer. What do you mean he didn't know his actions were
Yeah, I
against
thought
the
they
law?
were supposed to be the law.
No, it's
Our police officers should know damn fucking well what the laws are. If they don't know what the laws are, you don't have a business enforcing the fucking laws.
Nothing's going to change until also drug laws are changed. I mean, drug laws and the war on drugs has been one of the main... That's a lot of the reasons why a lot of these no-knock raids happen. They can use something as flimsy as saying they smelled marijuana somewhere.
I don't know. A Nazi got raided this week, and
I love when my enemies fight each other.
Yeah, like,
Let them fight.
that was actually a good thing.
So before we go off on that tangent, and just like I spoke before, the judges ruled that he couldn't be held responsible because there wasn't a previous case where an officer was found at fault in almost identical circumstances. Well, there's not going to be a case until there's the first fucking case. Why does there have to be a previous case?
That's exactly what it is. It makes it impossible to charge these officers, and that's why it needs this bill has to go through.
Again, it's going to need 60 votes in the Senate.
We have to smash more Republicans.
We have to. So, qualified immunity, I'm going to continue on here. Qualified immunity has blocked lawsuits for people who were killed by police during arrest, and I'm sure the link here is actually during arrest. There's probably a huge list. I'm not going to read right now.
What's more fascist than qualified immunity?
A man who was shot and killed after a 911 dispatcher put him in harm's way, and a man who gouged his own eyes out in jail after he was denied mental health care. They blocked all of those, and they were immune from some civil liability. Now, the police departments themselves were not. I'm sure they were sued to oblivion, and of course, that's taxpayer money. But again, the officers themselves, nothing. They faced nothing, and so it keeps going because they have the immunity.
And that's it. Really,
It's a pretty
allows,
good job perk. I wish, what if every job had qualified immunity? That's what they need to ask
It's the fucking
yourselves.
police union, because after this goes through...
Yeah,
if
the right wing
Chavez-
hates unions so much, but what the fuck's up with the police union?
Yeah, and they
I wish every union was that great,
it
right?
is the most protective union anybody could join.
The fascist
Because-
one.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way. I mean, you're gonna, if you break the law, you'll get reinstated, or you'll just move to another department. Like these fucking officers that are behaving in an illegal manner never face consequences. I saw one do a fucking illegal... It was a red light. He was sitting at a red light, and because I flipped him off, he did a U-turn at that red light. Well, first of all, me flipping you off is a First Amendment right of mine. I'm allowed to flip you off.
I remember this story you told last time.
But he did an illegal U-turn to be able to follow me. My fucking tags are good. I have insurance. I'm legal. I'm driving legal. I don't speed because of my fucking car.
Yeah.
I'm not dumb. So, yeah, he follows me for a good while and, like, ends up getting beside me, and he's looking at me with this stern look as I'm
And you just
smiling
flicked
at
him
him.
off more?
Well, yeah,
No.
no, we ended up at the next red light next to each other, and he's still giving me this stern look, and I'm just looking at him with a big old smile. He broke first. He ended up looking the other way when he realized I don't fucking give a shit. The whole time I'm thinking about it, though, is like, how fucking insecure do you have to be? Like, I have leftist stickers all over my car. You know how many middle fingers I see a day?
How much time did he waste doing this?
I know. It's so, because I flipped you off. I get flipped off every, like, at least...
Look,
I'd say at least twice a week. I get flipped off, and I laugh, and I drive on.
hey, this guy probably got bullied a lot in high school.
This motherfucker does an
He's really
illegal U-turn at a red light to come follow me for exercising my First Amendment right to be able to flip him off.
You were saluting him. That's what that was.
That's
Exactly.
exactly.
The salute
That's
that cops
it.
deserve.
So I want to quote, probably before we wrap this segment up, I want to quote Representative Jim Clyburn from South Carolina, a Democrat. He told Axios, this is from the Axios.com, I think and this is spot on. I think what has happened is that in so many instances, we've taken qualified and substituted absolute. It's not absolute, so why is it being enforced as absolute immunity? And
There we go.
That was spot fucking on.
That's it.
They've been using it as the ultimate shield from liability, and until
Who
George
watches
Floyd.
the Watchmen?
And you know what? And if there wasn't the outrage, I don't think the Chauvin case would even happen if there wasn't the immediate outrage from the city. Fucking none.
If that city did not burn, I don't think he got charged until after the city burned.
It was 3 or 4 days after the death of George Floyd when they actually charged him and the others for.
Hold on, I want to look
for
this
second
up.
degree murder, manslaughter, and some other charges.
What were the exact dates?
This is
Because Chauvin was charged.
it's the ratchet theory. Like I said, it's connected to drug laws too that make excuses so that cops have more and more power, more and more excuses that they can possibly make to infringe upon you.
And there's so many instances where excessive force was used and they basically outright murder people and no repercussions. Do you guys remember that video where it was a hotel? There was a kid literally on the ground crawling towards them. It was a white kid.
Oh, it was that white kid.
Yeah, the white kid. He was crawling like arms like he was trying. They were shouting conflicting.
The white people, the white supremacists were like, why is nobody talking about this? The leftist community was, because it was just as much an issue to us. We saw that as cops. That was a police brutality issue.
So what happened was they're shouting what I think are conflicting commands for this kid, to get to bring him towards him, and then just lit him up with an automatic rifle like probably between 9 and 12 times. He was shot several times and killed, outright murdered, and yet qualified immunity.
Yeah, see, like the most ridiculous thing too is that the military has stricter guidelines on crossing those lines. If you fire without having permission to be fired, like our military is more disciplined than police officers and has more training than police officers, and they are dealing with foreigners and the people
in their country.
In their country, they're the invading, occupying force,
right?
And they have more rules to keep them in line.
Rules of engagement, sure, and you're absolutely right. And the fact that we also militarize our police,
our police are militarized and have less accountability.
You're absolutely right.
It's fascism. That's what it looks like.
Okay, Elsie, what'd you find out?
So May 28th, the 3rd precinct was burned. On May 29th, Chauvin was arrested.
Okay, so we're under the presumption we're presuming and assuming here that had that activity not gone down, the city started burning, this mass protest that
it's important to say that the 3rd precinct did not get set on fire until day 3 of the riots.
You're right.
So it took 3 days of rioting to see this man arrested. 3 days.
And that shit was on video.
How many fucking buildings burned? The city was not going to do anything until they realized that the unrest in the city would not die down until the man faced charges. They waited 3 fucking days of riots. April 29th, 1992 was the last big riot that I remember in my lifetime.
Talking about the LA one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I only know that date because of Sublime. But
if cops aren't going to have accountability, you have to hold them to it. The city had to burn, a riot had to happen. That's what accountability
I'm a
looks
firm
like.
believer, as much as people will call me radical for thinking this, I think sometimes cities have to burn to see change.
And to another point that we made on episode 2, the only reason that shit happened is because someone happened to have a video camera and was recording that shit. Yeah. Same thing with, if a lot of this stuff goes unpunished because it's not being witnessed.
That's why we're going through another civil rights era right now, is because we have cameras on. Everybody has a fucking camera on them 24/7. And so we're able to see the police brutality that has been going on for fucking decades. but we didn't know because it wasn't all being filmed. Rodney King was filmed.
Yeah.
But
before
not,
then, countless.
Yeah, but that was
Who
before
knows what
everybody.
shit was going on in the 60s?
Yeah.
Right. Before we had cameras showing everything. Now we
even
have
then,
cameras, so you can't hide. I'm sorry, I see a cop. If I'm somewhere where I am able to stop, I've driven by and seen people of color pulled over by a cop, and I'm in the position where I can stop, and I just pull in a nearby parking lot, and I'll stop and film. Because I don't fucking trust the cops. You know, most of the time here in Knoxville, I leave. Everything's fine when I leave. But
so in our ACAB segment earlier, I had failed to remember. Our producer remind me that after the we're cool. There's no witnesses. The other guy, he's like, "Hey, is your cam recording? Your I guess the car camera." He's like, "Turn it off." So it's that bullshit right there. Like, they know what the fuck they're doing.
The whole mentality is protect the blue. They're not there to protect and serve the community. They're there to protect their brothers in blue.
The Supreme Court told us that.
Yeah, in 2005.
They came up with the Supreme Court in 1967 or 69, whatever I said earlier, probably 67. They're the ones that defined the qualified immunity doctrine.
But in 2005, they came out and said that it is not the duty of the police to protect and serve.
Then what the fuck are they there for?
Yeah, what you said in our previous episodes, to protect property of the rich.
Yeah, it's to protect property.
The class barrier.
Generate revenue.
And they're class traitors because they are not that part of that society themselves, yet they fight for them.
When we see ACAB, it's all.
Well, we're going to have to push away some other segments we had for the night. We're, again, doing this continuously, going way over our record time. But I want to thank you all again for joining us on episode 5 of Apostates on the Fringe. You can find us on our social media. We're on Facebook and Twitter. You can find the show notes and links to the articles on our website, apostatepod.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.
Fuck 12.
Fuck 12.
Thank you all very much.
Apostates on the Fringe. Apostates on the Fringe. Apostates on the Fringe. Apostates.
The views and opinions of the hosts of Apostates on the Fringe do not represent the opinions and views of the Atheist Society of Knoxville.
Should we cut to a sponsor break?
Yes, all the sponsors we have.
Sponsored by Fuck the Cops!